Let's talk to Paul Maynard, former Pensions Minister. Paul, very good morning to you.
Good morning, hello there.
Good to see you. Got a bit of breaking news here. Household water bills in England and Wales will increase by an average of £31 a year over the next 5 years, according to the regulator Ofwat. People in this country are getting pretty sick to death of all their bills going up all the time. Can we ever get some breaking news to say the bills are going to actually go down, do you think?
Well, if we ever had a water market where we could choose who supplied our water, maybe there'd be a bit of competition that might drive some prices down.
Yeah, but it's not just water, is it? I mean, every single regulator in this country seems to be interested in one thing only, and that is to keep the suppliers of everything happy and to screw the customers. I mean, surely it should be the other way round. The regulators should be telling us, the customer, what they're doing for us, but they don't seem to do anything.
They often forget they have duties to the consumer as well as to all the people that they're regulating, and the consumer rarely gets a look in.
Yeah. But why, though? Why can we not change? I mean, you're a former Pensions Minister, so I expect you to be able to enlighten me about the inner workings of government. Why is it that we seem so powerless in the face of these, you know, huge behemoth-like companies who just literally make fun of us, take the mickey out of us, and just keep charging us more and more money?
Well, it's worse than that. I used to be a rail minister, and when I first became a minister and saw the rail regulator, the ORR, they only had two specific rules that they had to look after consumers with regard to. Only two. Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds more, nothing to do with the consumer, but only two around the consumer, one of which related to delays and nothing else.
Right.
So in my view, the consumers never get a look in when it comes to a regulator.
But isn't there anyone in Parliament, Paul, who kind of starts to agitate about things like that and to say, look, surely we need to re-evaluate perhaps how these businesses are run and how these businesses work and whether they're in public control or not? I mean, there's talk now of renationalising the railways. I can't imagine it's going to make things any better because they're now in the grip of these trade unions who have just announced yet another series of strikes for Avanti West Coast Line over the course of the Christmas and New Year period. You know, it just seems to me that a lot of people say to me nowadays, Paul, you know, we've lost touch with our politicians. We don't have any faith in either of the two main parties. We don't feel as if they represent us. It doesn't seem as if they care about ordinary people. I mean, surely somebody in government or somebody in Parliament should worry about that, shouldn't they?
I think it's a job of MPs to be close to the people they represent, and when I was an MP, I lived in my own constituency. I would be seen around the shops. Anyone could stop me and tell me what they were thinking, and everything I tried to do as a constituency MP was based upon what did the needs of my local area look like. When I was a rail minister, I ended up introducing an ombudsman to represent consumers so they could get a fair crack of the whip when services went wrong, which was, of course, all too often.
Yeah.
So MPs and ministers can do things, but they have to make it their priority and fight for it.
Right.
The ombudsman was a great fight for me, so it can be done if a politician wants to.
But that's the problem.
Not enough really care about it.
Yeah, but that is the problem, isn't it? So much of it sort of runs on its own and nobody really seems to be in charge of it. And as I say, you know, people's view is that they're ones that feel the thick end of the wedge, and they're the ones that seem to be constantly, you know, being asked for more money, to pay more bonuses to more people who are not doing a very good job.
Yeah, and I get that cynicism entirely. You know, as a regular member of the public now, I see my council tax going up, I see my electricity going up again this quarter, and I think, why is it that the competition we're meant to have, that's meant to drive prices down, hasn't really achieved that?
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk a bit about the railways because, you know, we've got South West Trains, I think, are about to be the first train line operator to become nationalised in the next few weeks and months. We've got Avanti announcing a strike. We've got more and more people, I would say, who say to me anyway, that you can't rely on trains anymore on a regular basis. You can't really expect them to run on time. More than likely, if you book a train, you're probably going to get it cancelled. You know, I went up to Edinburgh recently and had a terrible time trying to get back from Edinburgh to London. How have we allowed the train services in this country to become so unreliable?
All passengers want, it's quite simple, is a seat, a train that's on time and a decent value fare. And that shouldn't be difficult to provide if we had proper, true and real competition on the railways. Even under the old system, many franchises had no competition. If I wanted to get from Blackpool down to London to Parliament, I had to choose Avanti West Coast, no other alternative. But where you have competition, like on the East Coast main line, fares are lower and services are better. So I think the answer partly needs to be more competition on our rail network. But the government's going in the opposite direction. They think that if they control everything, it will all be wonderful. That's the Labour mindset, of course.
Yeah.
But having thrown all this money at the RMT, the RMT now know that all they have to do is flick a switch, the national network down, and Rachel Reeves will give them loads more money. So we put all the power back in the hands of the unions once again.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm afraid we've got several years of that to come, haven't we? Every single time, as you say, they want something, they'll just say, threaten to go on strike, and they'll get what they want. Let's talk a bit about Tulip Siddiq. Big story on the front page of the Daily Mail this morning. She's in a £4 billion bribery probe over a power plant that her family, because one of her family members, of course, was the ousted former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. A picture of her that's from 2013, I think it is, basically standing in a room with Vladimir Putin, pretty close to him. There's only 4 people in the picture, with her aunt and Vladimir Putin in 2013. Would you not think that if you were the Prime Minister of this country and you were thinking about appointing somebody to the Cabinet, that you might check and see whether they've had any pictures taken recently with anyone who might be considered a bad actor?
Well, I can imagine that if anyone had their picture taken with Vladimir Putin 10 years ago, they are regretting it now. I think Tulip Siddiq's links to the former Bangladeshi government are worthy of very proper examination. And I'm sure at some point over the day, the number 10 spokesman is going to get asked about this, so I hope he's already preparing his answers, because although I'm not on top of every single detail, the smell of what we're reading about and hearing about is not great, I have to say.
It's not, is it?
Awful lot went wrong in Bangladesh down the years. We don't know how much she's been involved in that and how much she may or may not have benefited. So I'm sure there's plenty of questions to answer.
Yeah. And, of course, at the moment in the Labour government, it seems as though they don't really like answering questions, particularly. They don't really react well to being put on the spot. Keir Starmer himself gets very tetchy when he gets asked specific questions. We've still never really had, I don't think, satisfactory answers to what Lord Ali's role was at the beginning of this government, what his role was before that, you know, why he was somehow a pivotal figure in the selection of various MPs and to which MPs he gave money and to which MPs he gave clothes. You know, we still don't know the answers to an awful lot of things that this Labour government have sort of moved on from and think we should just take for granted.
I think he thinks it's an impertinence if we question him, that we ought to be incredibly grateful for everything he's doing on our behalf. And he gets irritated so easily. It's one thing you notice when you watch him on a regular basis. He doesn't like being questioned. He gets annoyed if people question difficult decisions they've had to make, stuff I passionately disagree with. And when people put it to him, it's as though we're the ones in the wrong, not him, because we're not grateful enough. A very odd way to approach public life, I have to say.
Well, it's very strange, isn't it? And they are now becoming hated more than they are disliked, I think, this government. Rachel Reeves today is accused of outright falsehood after claiming that she protected working people by not hiking their national insurance in her budget. What we now know is that the budget has been universally condemned pretty much by all and sundry, from business people all the way down to local government, all the way down to even public sector workers, because the fact that national insurance has been hiked to such an extent that they can't get a pay rise is also meaning that an awful lot of people are laying other people off. I spoke to a friend of mine last night who's got a guy who runs a bunch of businesses in the north of England. His national insurance bill is going to go up by £750,000. And he's going to have to lay people off. He owns a couple of companies that he's going to just shut down because they're not any longer economically viable.
I'm not sure what economy she thinks she's in charge of, but it doesn't seem to be this economy in this country, because every decision they take appears to be the wrong one. Day after day now, we're hearing stories of companies who are either shutting branches or not hiring more people or pushing back on what they're doing, all because of those national insurance hikes. And they keep on pretending that it's nothing to do with working people, that it is not breaching any of the promises they made during the election, and everybody can see through it. It's a real achievement after just 6 months to be as unpopular as they are.
It is quite extraordinary, isn't it? I've never seen anything like it. I'm not sure if you have. Let's have a look at what Jeremy Corbyn had to say last night on Newsnight, because one of the big stories that we're also looking at today is, you know, donations to political parties and whether they should be capped in some way or regulated more in some way. Obviously, Elon Musk wants to give a load of money to reform, and the Labour and the Tories are getting their knickers in a twist about it. Here's Jeremy Corbyn.
Musk pouring those sums of money into our politics over the next 4 years is, to me, quite frightening.
Why?
wealthy people owning politics is very, very dangerous, because
But
at
that's
the
not
end,
new to this country, is it?
isn't it time to end it? That's it.
So should Labour tighten up the rules on donations to British political parties?
Yes, it should.
Including trade union donations?
Well, trade unions are not commercial operations like Elon Musk, and don't have the selfish interests of Elon Musk. A trade union represents its members. It's a democratic organisation. That's a completely different thing.
Right.
And the political fund has to be voted on by the members of the union whether to have one or not.
That's a good one, isn't it? Trade unions are not political organisations. They are run by their members, their democracies. Well, I think that's news to an awful lot of people. But also, he didn't seem to be too worried about working for Press TV, Jeremy Corbyn, when he was in his pomp, and he used to take money from the Iranians in order to do a TV show for them. But what do you make of the rules about political donations and whether big companies and rich people should be allowed to do it?
I think we've got a perfectly adequate set of laws in place at the moment. Just because you don't like someone who may be thinking about making a large donation shouldn't stop the person from being able to make that donation, provided it's legal.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a situation where, well, I like trade unions, they can make big donations, but not Elon Musk. It's not to my particular taste. I'll say that now.
Well,
we live in a democracy.
Well, the idea that the trade unions give money to the Labour Party without asking for anything in return is a joke, isn't it? Because we all saw...
Well, we've just seen Rachel Reeves give them millions upon millions upon millions of pounds back. So,
Exactly.
it's a very good exchange for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a transaction. I mean, the idea that Corbyn is so ridiculously naive that he thinks that they're not a business operation is, frankly, ridiculous, and he's completely and utterly wrong. Paul, listen, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Paul Maynard, former pensions minister there, giving us the benefit of his view on all of that.